Yeah. Hey.
Tobago updates.
Na 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 na.
Good morning, Tobago.
Na 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 na.
Wake up with Candace and Denicia.
Let's go, go. It's a brand new morning. Rise up to a brand new dawning. As the passion start to rise, the energy fill the skies.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, we are switching our conversations this morning to the THA Awards that's coming up. And we are being joined this morning by the Communications Director within the Office of the Chief Secretary, Ms. Avian Parks. So special good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning, Candace. Good morning to all your viewers and listeners. I feel like a bit of a homebody on the Tobago
Certainly.
of this program.
Certainly. You're part of our family. Now, we have the THA Awards coming up very soon and the closing date for nominations.
That's right, Candace. So I was here about 2.5 weeks ago when we opened nominations for the Tobago Day Awards 2023. So this is really a reminder to persons that you still have a few days to submit your nominations. So the deadline is this Friday, October 6th, 4 p.m. So we are encouraging persons, you still have a few days to submit those names of individuals or groups.
Now, can you give us an idea of what are the awards that are available and those people that we can nominate? Can we nominate just anybody? Is there criteria that they have to meet?
Right. So, Candace, what I indicated previously is for these awards, when you are nominating or submitting your nomination, you nominate for a sphere of activity, such as sport, academics, public service, political service, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Now, on our ads, you will see categories of awards. So these are the areas that persons are going to be awarded in. However, when you are filling out the form, you aren't filling out for a category. So we have an awards committee that sits and deliberates. It's spearheaded by the sitting chief administrator, and they will determine what award persons are deserving of. So yes, we have the Tobago Medal of Honor, Gold, Silver, Bronze, and the Chief Secretary's Award. I shall just go through them very quickly. And the Medal of Honor, Distinguished and Outstanding Service to Tobago. Mm-hmm. Medal of Honor, Silver, Long and Meritorious Service to Tobago. Medal of Honor, Bronze, Loyal and Devoted Service beneficial to Tobago in any field of human endeavor, gallantry or human action. So you'll see this one is not just about activities in terms of progress and development of Tobago, but it could have been a heroic act or, just something great. We have awarded persons for gallantry. And then we have the Chief Secretary's Award for Outstanding Contributions, Significant Achievements towards the Development of Tobago, the eligibility period, November 2022 to October 2023. So it's only the Chief Secretary's Award that has a time frame. So it's within the last year. The others are over a period of time. And as I said, it can be an individual you nominate or it can be a group. So your youth groups, your police youth groups, your NGOs, your CBOs, your faith-based organizations, all these groups can also be nominated and vie for an award, similar to the national awards.
Certainly. And last year, when we looked at the awards last year, we actually recognized quite a lot of people. So is there a limit this year or are we still open?
I can't say whether there is a limit, but yes, for 2022, which actually happened in February of 2023, yes, for unavoidable circumstances, it was probably our biggest recipient list. Whether that is going to happen this year again, I'm not certain. I can't say, but we'll certainly see how that goes. So after the awards committee deliberates and they compile their list, the list is then sent on to the Chief Secretary and the Executive Council for final approval. So that is basically the process. Now, just in terms of accessing the nomination forms and submitting the forms, I'll quickly go through that again for persons who may have missed it before. So you can go to the THA website, which is www.tha.gov.tt. You can download the form there, you can fill it out there, you can return it to the email address oca.secretary@tha.gov.tt, or as I like to say, for those who are not very tech savvy or prefer the traditional way, we have catered for you as well. So you can come into the office at Smithfield Plaza, and that is located directly opposite the People's Pentecostal Church, or next to where TRHA was located, or diagonally opposite Rapid Response. So those are 3 main landmarks to find us. You go to the 3rd floor, and that's the Chief Administrator's office. You can collect a physical form there, and you can also return the physical form there.
Great. And, this is something that we want to have a lot of people being able to access, right? And as you mentioned, like, there is no limit to, the people that can be nominated. But is there, like, any specifics that the committee looks for from our people? I mean, what about in terms of repeat people who have received awards before and that sort of thing?
So I have seen repeat awardees, and of course, if you are looking at progress and development over a period of time, there are things you could have done in the first 5 years. You may have done something significant in the second 5,
Yes.
So I don't know that there is any limit. I don't want to speak on behalf of the committee because I've never sat on the committee, and it tends to be external persons. So as far as I'm aware, the only internal person in terms of the THA is the Chief Administrator, who spearheads. So they really try to ensure it's a very transparent process, right? So I don't really want to speak on behalf of the committee. What I want to mention, though, which I think is significant, and really just to emphasize and remind persons that the Tobago Day Awards is held on December 4th every year to commemorate the new incarnation of the Tobago House of Assembly. So that's when we really remember the new formation of the Tobago House of Assembly from 1980. So people tend to still ask, when is Tobago Day? Tobago Day is December 4th every year.
Certainly. And also looking ahead, we have the school calendar competition coming up pretty soon as well that people should get involved in.
Yes. So we have the Chief Secretary's Tobago Secondary Schools Art Competition. We are in our 10th year, and I'm really, really proud to say that. And this competition has been spearheaded by the Department of Information. It was started under my predecessor, Joanna Barrows, and commendations, to her for starting up this program.
Yes.
And successive chief secretaries have stuck with it. They've liked it, and they have encouraged it. So I'm also grateful to all the chief secretaries who have encouraged it and, ensured that it stayed as one of the events of the department. So it's the 10th anniversary. The theme this year, Greatest Little Island on the Planet, or Tobago Mantra. We are looking forward to the submissions from the secondary school students. So it is only secondary school students who can enter. However, as mentioned previously, you do not have to be in your art program or in your school's art program to enter. So you can be a student, you are not doing art as a subject for CXC or A-levels, but you like art, you do art as a hobby, you do good art, you can submit an entry. You can enter the competition and have your principal sign off. So we have had a student who was not in her art program in her school, and she did win the competition, actually. So I just really encourage those students who are that way inclined. It is a platform to encourage students, the artistic students, to let them know art, visual arts, it is a viable career path. So it's not only about the doctors and the lawyers or the communications professionals. Art is a viable career path, and we want to encourage those students who are that way inclined.
And when we looked at what we've seen over the years, we've seen such beautiful
Amazing
art come out in those calendars.
Yes.
So you definitely want to keep encouraging you guys to submit your pieces.
Yes. And this year in particular, I am so grateful and excited because for the first time, we were able to bring on the corporate community. So we have sponsors. We are able to give more prizes. So all the prizes are not solely covered or donated by the Tobago House of Assembly. So I would like to mention our sponsors: First Citizens, Republic Bank, Unit Trust, B-Mobile, Penny Savers, EIDCOT. And we also partnered with Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy, Education, Research and Technology, and Community Development and Sport. So what we have this year, Candice, is normally or traditionally, the first prize winner will receive $3,000. This year, in addition to the $3,000, they'll be getting $2,000 in units. They'll be getting a Wacom tablet and a 2-week internship at the ePixel studio down at eIdcot. So it's a really exciting competition.
Certainly.
This year, we also have consolation prizes. We'll have 6 consolation prizes worth $1,000 each. That is for persons who don't make it in the first 12. So, you know, the first 12 comprise the Chief Secretary's calendar for the following year. So outside of, and the 11 other finalists outside of the first place normally get $1,500 each. So this year, in addition to those 12, we are giving 6 consolation prizes worth $1,000 each. And in addition to that, each participant will receive a $200 voucher, right, for art supplies. So those who didn't place at all, you aren't going. So let me say those who didn't place at all, right? Let me emphasize that. So those who receive prizes, you wouldn't get the $200 voucher. But those who did not place at all, you didn't place in the top 12, you didn't receive a consolation prize, you are not going to walk away with anything. You are going to get a $200 voucher for art supplies. So we have really widened it. Thanks to our corporate sponsors, we have broadened it, and we are really pleased about that.
All right. I want to thank you so much, Miss Avian Parks, for being on with us and for giving us those updates. And certainly, if for parents out there, if you have young ones that are very much in secondary school and are into art, encourage them to take
You still have a few more days. So the deadline for the art competition is Wednesday, 11th October. So that's next Wednesday. So I don't know how long it takes to do an art piece, but if you can whip it up in that space of time, great.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And
Thank you,
viewers,
Candace.
thank you for being with us. We are now at the end of our program, but we would see you again tomorrow. So have a safe and wonderful one.
The energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor to wake up and hear my neighbor. 60,000 people strong, and the vibes is never wrong. We are beauty, we are power.
And well, viewers, like I said, we had a bumper day yesterday with all the news of the budget, and hopefully you got a chance to look at what happened. I mean, I just gave you just a small smidgen of a snapshot. But for the next hour, we are going to be joined virtually by the Deputy Chief Secretary and the Secretary of Health, Wellness, and Social Protection, Dr. Faith B. Israel, as we discuss the budget for the entirety of the next hour. Good morning and welcome to you, Dr. Faith.
Hi, good morning. It's wonderful being here.
Certainly. Now, first of all, you said that, yesterday when reporters and the media spoke to you yesterday, you said that the budget puts Tobago at a disadvantage. So I would like you just to elaborate a little bit on that point.
Certainly. Well, this is a game that we play every year. We've been playing this game for quite some time. The Tobago House of Assembly sent a request, in essence, that's about $4.56 billion, with the bulk of it being recurrent expenditure because we have a large wage bill. We still need to pay the normal recurrent stuff. And we also asked for a significant chunk as it relates to development monies. Now, the development budget is what we call the investment into the country, the investment into the island. It is this kind of spend that allows economic growth. It is this kind of spend that allows to create industries that can then make money for the island. So when the Minister of Finance announced that we are at $260 million to do all of this spending, to do all of the investment, to do all of the development that is needed for the island, it caused me to seriously think, to seriously stop, and to seriously pause. Because in the same 4.5 hour presentation that he made yesterday, he highlighted several other development projects in Trinidad that far surpassed the spending that we are expected to do in Tobago. So, for example, he highlighted the fact that Hazley Crawford Stadium was refurbished for Commonwealth Games, which is great. We want the Commonwealth Games. And Hazley Crawford Stadium being refurbished is going to cost them $90 million. All of Tobago is getting $260 million. So Hazley Crawford alone refurbishments got $90 million. He spoke about the San Fernando Hospital car park being expanded, and that alone was $150 million. Now, I am not saying that the San Fernando Hospital car park does not need to be expanded. We are comparing $150 million to expand a car park compared to $260 million to develop a whole island. We could see why this budget was designed to specifically stymie the development plans of the Tobago House of Assembly, which is the development plan of Tobago.
Now, what was very interesting yesterday was that the minister, in his presentation, when we were speaking about Tobago, he said that he supported a lot of the plans that were presented in June. And then he ended by a small statement saying, I wish them luck. When you heard that statement, what was your reaction?
Well, I was sitting there. I actually traveled. I am still in Trinidad now. I traveled to the parliament to listen to it. And when I heard him indicate that, yes, the foundation of the Tobago House of Assembly budget request was sound. The policies that we used to create this budget were sound. They are based in science. They are based in us collecting data. They are based on us having this vision of creating a Tobago that is the greatest little island on the planet. When he said that, I thought, wow, now I am glad that he actually recognizes that we did not just pull these numbers out of our heads, that we actually have sat down at the Tobago House of Assembly and we have actively decided that these are the areas of priority for us. These are the areas that will cause to actually develop in a way that makes sense. Now, after going through all of that, he then, in a very snide, calm, imbue way, he wishes them luck. Basically said to me, we understand where you are going, we understand what you are trying to do, but we do not care. Not only do we not care, we are, or we seem to be actively trying to do everything to ensure that you do not get to your end goal. And that to me was probably the most disheartening part of the budget yesterday, because he could have at least pretended to care. Those in the past at least pretended to care. But he does not even hold that kind of ethics or regard for the people of Tobago to even pretend to care. And that to me says a whole lot. And I hope that Tobagonians paid keen attention to that.
And after he said that, what was also interesting is that, the government is going to push ahead with their drive and what their idea of development is for Tobago. And then he mentioned several projects. What was your reaction also to that part of it in terms of, you all have a good plan? If you all could accomplish it, great, but they're pushing ahead with what they believe that is best for Tobago.
Yeah, what he did is a continual part of the plot to try to deceive Tobagonians, because this is the argument that they've made. We are complaining, as in we, the Tobago House of Assembly, are complaining that we've only gotten 260 million to do our entire development program. And they push back with this idea of no, other ministries in the government of Trinidad and Tobago actually been allocated upwards of 600 and I think $678.5 million to do work in Tobago. Now that would have been fine. I would have welcomed that if the work plan of these government agencies in the government of Trinidad and Tobago was aligned with the plans of Tobago and Tobagonians. Because we have gone through a very clear, a very strategic mechanism to get to the budget, to get to the priority projects that we do within each of our divisions. We work closely with our stakeholders. The members of the divisions actually get together and work very closely to determine what we do next and how we execute these projects next and so forth. See, if we had that same kind of collaboration with the relevant government ministry, we would then be able to say, sure, what you are planning to do as a government now is in line with what the people of Tobago have indicated to those who they've elected to represent them. It is in line with it. So let's go ahead, let's push ahead. We spend money, you spend that money, and we are fine. But that sadly has not happened. And I am speaking from my perspective in terms of Deputy Chief Secretary and Secretary with responsibility for health, wellness, and social protection, as it relates to having any kind of real collaboration with the line ministers, as it relates to any of these larger projects or anything like that in Tobago. Now, let's look at an example, though, of what he outlined as part of this 600 and whatever. 400 million of it is for the airport
Yes.
expansion project. We are close to 2 years being in the Tobago House of Assembly, the executive of the Tobago House of Assembly, and we know little more now than we did 2 years ago about the project. So we are still nowhere close to having a greater understanding of what this project means. All we've done in the background is tried to assist those residents who've been displaced and to try to make their lives a little easier. But into actual airport projects, we do not have the kind of information that we should have had. And it's not for want of trying, it's not for want of reaching out and the ministers and so forth. They just simply refused. He also spoke about the Roxborough fire station. And I had to wonder if we're talking about the same Roxborough and if we're talking about the same Roxborough fire station that them themselves come up and open, must say last year before election.
Elections.
Because that Roxborough fire station has been open and has been in use for several years at this point. Again, showing that he is not, or whoever put that in the budget, is certainly not what is happening in Tobago. Those two are just perfect examples of why this is such a charade. Now, the other thing is, they said this last year, and they said that they were going to spend 700 million in Tobago last year. And I am wondering if any Tobagonian can honestly look around in Tobago and identify where the government of Trinidad and Tobago spent about $700 million in Tobago. Because they just say this in the budget, and there is no real mechanism for them to account for those monies that they claim to want to spend. So you say it up front, and then the end of the fiscal goes by. I get cuts for hospitals, Trevor gets cuts for roads, Zorisha gets cuts for the schools, but we do not see any of the millions that the government agencies have said that were spent on the island anyway. So again, going back to show that this is all just part of a game that they seem to be playing, except that this game really does actually affect Tobagonian lives.
But even when you look at that, what he quoted was the extra budgetary spend in Tobago through the various ministries. The only significant spend there is that of the $400 million for the airport terminal. The rest of it is like, 7.5 for the Hillsborough Dam, 1 point for the Roxborough. And we also know that a lot of the money would be for salaries for police officers, for fire, and those other recurrent expenditures on the like national security and on the cast and so on. But it's just very interesting because the airport terminal is being constructed not by a Tobago contractor, but by the Chinese railway company. So even though all that money is technically being spent in Tobago, but it's not being spent with a Tobago contractor.
Yes, and we even understand that in the contract with that, where there was a local content clause within the contract. They said a Tobago contractor had to have been given, or contractors had to have been given quite a bit of the work. We understand that those parts were then subcontracted to contractors outside. So you are 100% correct with that one. The monies, even though it is being spent on projects in Tobago, the economy of Tobago is not benefiting because the money is not staying in Tobago, and that is absolutely correct. But you also touched on the fact that the part, a big chunk of it, is also included in the sixth schedule item. So the police and the fire and those people. And what we've recognized coming into this year and some ago, less than 2 years ago, is that the Tobago House of Assembly, because we understand that the island of Tobago needs to be protected, and we understand that our entire the protective services needs to be comfortable and need to be able to do their jobs, or we will not be safe. The Tobago House of Assembly has actually been spending quite quote unquote THA money on 6 scheduled items. We are the ones who are renting police cars for the policemen to drive up and down. We are the ones who are spending for stays for hotels and guest houses and so forth for some of these individuals to stay. We are the ones who are retrofitting the prisons and the army barrack and all of that. It is the Tobago House of Assembly that's actually been chinksing from the little bit of money that we already getting, doing these 6 scheduled items spends because the government and the Ministry of National Security simply is not doing it. So again, we understand what is needed for Tobago and Tobagonians to survive, and we are willing to do whatever it takes to make that a reality. This budget certainly that they absolutely do not care about this island.
And we're going to get a bit more into some of the nitty-gritties of the budget and how it can affect Tobago when we come back after this break. So don't go anywhere.
It's a brand new morning, rise up to a brand new dawning.
Updates.
Na, 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 na.
Good morning, Tobago.
Na, 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 na.
Wake up with Candace and
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, we are continuing our conversations this morning with Deputy Chief Secretary Dr. Faith B. Israel as we discuss the budget that was presented yesterday by Finance Minister Imbert. And we are continuing along. And before we went to the break, we were talking a little bit about some of the resources of the THA that had to be used on items under the 6 schedule, such as the police and so on. And the minister did touch on Coast Guard services and, getting some more vessels for Trinidad and so on. But we didn't hear any information on specifically repairing the vessels, or like the interceptor that's been down for 2 3 years. It's been down for a few years. Tobago does not have a Coast Guard vessel ready at its service. It has to wait until a vessel comes from Trinidad, and that only depends on the circumstance that the vessel is needed for. And even recently we had the situations where we had the drownings and so on, where they had to use the vessel of one of our divers to go and rescue or to recover the body and so on. So, I mean, it's just an interesting point where we're at right now, where we're not seeing that input from central government to fix some of these things.
It is sad. We've recognized that even though national security is a 6 scheduled item and is not under the responsibility of the Tobago House of Assembly, we've been looking critically at what has been happening. We've kind of made a decision in the House of Assembly to figure out how to treat with our own island security. I can say that we've actually been working out a pretty detailed proposal to create an island security mechanism that will take into account what we need for the police, what we need in the sea, what we land, and that kind of thing, and figure out how we could do it ourselves, because we've recognized that what has been happening or what is in place is woefully deficient, and we know that we are the ones who are held responsible when anything does. So we are ensuring that we take up the responsibility as the Tobago House of Assembly to secure the people who are on the island. Chief Secretary will be speaking more about that in the near future, but that is actually something that we have been looking at critically, because what is going on now simply is not working, and we just can't continue doing what is not working. I am hoping, though, that even though the Minister for Finance did not specifically speak about what they plan to do to improve national security in Tobago in the budget presentation, that the Minister for National Security would probably speak to that to some degree when he does his presentation later this week or next week, when they continue with the budget debates. So, we've decided that this is a responsibility that we need to take up, and we will figure out how to do it. We will figure out, as we've been figuring out how to do everything else that we've done thus far.
Certainly. Well, another thing that was spoken about quite a bit in the budget is that of property tax, and the minister gave the indication. He presented, what it would cost for residents and so on, and sort of put the nation on notice that um, based on the judgments, I mean, based on the expectation of a favorable judgment by the end of the year, we would have the institution of property tax. But I noticed something interesting, I mean, because when he spoke about it, he spoke about it in the context of what is collected in property tax would be given to the 14 municipalities, and that's how they would get their funding to do what they need to do in their communities. But he didn't mention the THA. And I was wondering, has there been any conversation between the minister and the THA in regards to how the property tax will be rolled out in Tobago?
Certainly. So when he said that, coincidentally, I was sitting next to Mr. Anselm Richards, who is one of our advisors as it relates to finance, and he indicated that that was a question this actually asked because a contingent from the finance division met with the minister sometime ago, and that was one of the questions they asked specifically. He assured me that at the meeting, the minister agreed that the Tobago House of Assembly would be the entity collecting the property tax in Tobago, and would be able to use it to do our work in Tobago the same way the municipalities would be allowed to do that in their areas in Trinidad. So the fact that he stated specifically, I'm not sure why he didn't state it specifically. I don't know where else there would be an opportunity to speak to that, but that was part of a previous conversation. Did get commitment that that is how it is going to be. Now, it's important to note that the current Tobago House of Assembly Act does the Tobago House of Assembly the authority to collect all taxes that relate to Tobago. Now, granted, we have not done a great job at that because we have not ensured that all of the multinational entities do actually present their taxes for the part of their economic activity that happens in Tobago. And what are we talking about? We have all of these banks, we have all of these large scale furniture companies and that kind of thing, these large scale groceries and that kind of thing that are national. But when they do their taxes and when they pay their taxes, they pay them as a single entity, and that is paid to the national purse. What we have to put in place is a mechanism to force them to pay those in Tobago. And it's one of the things that we campaigned on when we were running for elections a couple of years ago, and it's one of the mechanisms that we are still grappling with to put that in place to ensure that all of the economic activity that is happening on the island, that the taxes associated with those are actually remitted in Tobago so that the Tobago House of Assembly could have access to that. And the current THA Act speaks to the fact that if the amount of taxes that we collect is actually way greater than what our estimates, our budget estimates are, then we get to keep 50% of the excess. So it really is an incentive for us to put the mechanisms in place to collect all of the taxes that relate to Tobago in Tobago, so that we can use those monies as our revenue for the island.
And where are we in getting to that point?
So we've so many areas that needed what do you call fires out that honestly that has not necessarily been at the top of our list of things, but it is something that the technicians are actually working on, and when we are ready to roll it out fully, that announcement will be made. That announcement will certainly be made to the public.
Now, what is also interesting in the conversation yesterday, or from the announcements that was made by the minister yesterday, was the mass expansion of Caribbean Airlines. Four new ATRs, three other well, like several other airplanes are going to be acquired for the route, and also there is this mandate for Caribbean Airlines to sort of fill in the gap where Liat left off and so on. And they're also pursuing cargo operations within the region. But there was nothing mentioned on increasing the flights for Tobago and getting us back to the pre-COVID schedule.
Um, you know, sat in the parliament yesterday, and I actually said it to one of my colleagues. I said, I kind of feel sitting here, and this is me being punished for something that I've done wrong. Because you have to sit here and you have to listen to all of these insults. You have to get on your face and you have to be diplomatic and you have to continue having these cordial relationships, and you have members of the public then telling us that we need to not be so adversarial, and telling Farley that he needs to temper his words, and all of these things, when this is the reality of what we are facing. It's one of the reasons why this week, oh no, it was last week, in the Tobago House of Assembly legislature, that we raised a motion to create in Tobago a Tobago transportation company. And that will be a special purpose company of the Tobago House of Assembly, whose task is it to ensure that all of the transportation issues that we currently face on the island is treated with. And that would mean possibly looking for other suppliers of transportation, encouraging private entities to come in and provide inter-island. And when we say inter-island, we don't necessarily just mean between Trinidad and Tobago, but between Tobago and Grenada and some of the other islands that are right there, or having airlines come in outside of Caribbean Airlines to possibly help us with the routes between Trinidad and Tobago and the routes between Tobago and the rest of the world, and ensuring that even on the ground we have a mechanism that works way better than what PTSC is doing. Now PTSC runs a pretty decent ship in Tobago, but it needs to be more frequent, to be more detailed. The networks need to be better designed and that kind of thing. So, for example, we could have like a hub in Roxborough that then allows smaller vehicles to go to Charlottesville and Palliser Fair and that kind of thing. So that is why we went to the House last week to debate having that Tobago transportation company. And that would then help us treat with some of these issues, because again, we continue to see that the government of Trinidad and Tobago does not really see us as side by side, does not really see us as an integral part of this nation state, does not see us as half of them, and everything in their power to ensure that we do not get to be side by side. But the reason why, I personally believe that the reason why Tobago voted so overwhelmingly for us in December 2021 was because they recognized that they needed individuals in Tobago who were willing to take up the mantle to make some of these very difficult decisions and to execute them. And that is what we have been doing thus far.
All right. And then, as you mentioned PTSD, actually, I mean, we didn't really hear too much about PTSD from the minister. I mean, of course, maybe when the Minister of Works and Transport gives his presentation in the budget debate in the next coming weeks, or days, I should say, we might be able to hear a bit more from him. But there was no mention of a new bus terminal for Tobago that's been a sore point on the island for such a long time, what, 20 years or more?
Yeah, I think they've really just decided that they're not going to remind the Tobagonians that this is something they've promised all of these years. and hopefully hoping that we would all forget that this is something that they had promised. But again, this is why we went ahead with the Tobago, the transportation company debate, and we were able to pass. So we now have a legal authority for the Tobago, for the Executive Council to then create this special purpose company to treat with these transportation issues. And this we will do. One of the things I need to state is that when we've come in and we've recognized that there are many things that are not working the way they should. And what we are doing really is asking Tobagonians for the time to do what you have elected us to do. It's been less than 2 years. I would have loved for us to have been way further along in some of these quote unquote mandate promises that we've had. But we are doing the best that we can given the limited resources that we've been given, and we continue to tread on to ensure that we provide the best that we can for the island.
All right. And now moving on to some of the other things that was spoken about quite a bit in the budget yesterday was that of the plans for the SMEs, our small and medium-sized businesses, which we know basically it's what the private sector is here in Tobago. And amongst one of the plans was that move to deal with the forex issue and creating a facility for small and medium-sized businesses to be able to access forex outside of a credit card arrangement and so on. From what you heard, are you confident, or I mean, what is your take on these measures that were mentioned?
We know how difficult it is to get foreign exchange. Even as a government official, I need to travel out of Trinidad and Tobago. I have to go with a letter to the bank stating that Dr. Faith should get $500 US, which is absolutely ridiculous in that this is where we are at. So I welcome any opportunity for us to do better at those things. Let me highlight something that I heard yesterday, though, that we need to be very conscious of. While speaking about the digital age and ensuring that our small and medium businesses are in a place to benefit from, using it and that kind of thing, the minister identified the fact that 80 something percent of our small businesses do not have bank accounts. And I sat there and I thought to myself, I wonder if the minister has actually ever tried to open a bank account in Trinidad and Tobago, and ever tried to open a bank account as an individual, so a private account, and then try to open a bank account as a business or as an NGO. It is like pulling teeth. It is the most difficult process ever. And I can understand why entities don't have bank accounts, because it simply is taking too much effort. And that goes to the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago. It is very, very, very difficult if you are a small or medium business manager or entity to actually do business in Tobago because of all of the bureaucratic red tape that you have to jump through. So instead of saying, surprisingly, 80 something percent of the businesses don't have bank accounts, the question you need to ask those is why. And they would tell you it is because all of the paperwork they have to bring, all of the they have to bring, it is just too onerous on them to do it, and therefore they function in the unofficial economies of Trinidad and Tobago because we are forcing them to do that. So if we are really about trying to develop small and medium enterprises, we need to ensure that the ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago is much easier than it is now. To be honest, the banking system does not make it easy at all, and that is a big chunk of why we are way behind as it relates to many of these things.
Well, there was also this push to go towards a cashless society, and part of being a cashless society is having data connection, but we still have problems with data connection around Tobago. So, has there been any discussion about improving the data connection first of all, for us to even begin to have that conversation about moving cashless?
Yeah, so we have actually been having conversations with the telecommunications entities, the various private entities on the island to see what needs to be done to provide better service to Tobago. And it is the ongoing conversations. I would prefer not to go into the details because some of these are, in essence, kind of trade secrets for the entities because of what they are planning to do. But it is a critical thing for us to really actually be able to communicate with each other if we are to go cashless, and that is critical. Now, a big chunk, unfortunately, I give this example. The things that we are talking about in Trinidad and Tobago as in new technologies as relates to cashlessness have actually been part of the world for the last 10, 20, 30 years. In Tanzania, several years ago while I was in school, while I was in college, I went to Tanzania, and I remember seeing Maasai men in the Maasai with very rudimentary cell phones, and they've been able to do banking, e-banking, electronic banking on their cell phones out in the middle of the Serengeti or wherever, because they've developed that system. And this was what, 20 years ago we're talking about. So the fact that Trinidad and Tobago is now at this point having this conversation is really, really proof that we are decades behind the rest of the world, and we simply need to come up to the times to ensure that it is done. This is we really just. I don't know what it is actually that is preventing us from being closer to where the rest of the world is when it comes to these technologies.
Mm-hmm. And especially even in terms of getting, a simple thing as a card reader, a links machine, and so on. It's so difficult because when you speak to a lot of businesses, I mean, they tell you, because even if they get it, they might even only be able to, they would have a limit as to how much they might be able to transact on that machine and so on. And I don't know if you're seeing on your end, but are we seeing those conversations happening about how do we address these stipulations that are put on by the banking sector onto the business sector, and that is actually preventing some of us moving towards those taking up those technology more, moving towards those cashless things a bit more, and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, these are conversations that we are having. And as I said before, I am yet to figure out why it is as difficult as it is. I think it is part of us trying to prevent the unethical or illegal activities from infiltrating our banking system. But the reality is that those who are doing the illegal or unethical things are the ones who are able to circumvent the system and use the banks anyway and do what they have to do. So all of these roadblocks are simply preventing the small man, the small woman from getting into the formal financial systems. And this is, for example, the last couple of years, we had all of these issues with these susus and that kind of thing because the small man finally found a mechanism to do economic activities that the banks were preventing them from doing. And we see how all of that blew up anyway. But it just tells us that we need to make ease of doing business in Trinidad and Tobago significantly easier than what it is right now.
Faith be Israel, I want to thank you so much for being on with us. It was certainly a pleasure speaking with you this morning. I know this is a discussion that is not yet over yet. We have a lot more to unpack on the national budget, but we're certainly looking forward to, just the future.
Certainly, and we at the Tobago House of Assembly, we will go in deeper, look at what's happening, and then we will continue having the conversation. Thanks for having me.
All right, great. Well, viewers, we got to go for a break, and when we come back, we got more on GMT, so don't go anywhere.